Welcome to Conversations with HJM. I'm Lisa Harris-Jones.
And I'm Barry Glassman.
And today we have Brian Feldman. He's the chairman of the Senate Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, understanding that you are, we call it Triple E in Annapolis, what type of issues do you see that come before your committee?
Well, so let me say that the committee title that you just mentioned it's much broader than that. So we had actually within this committee, you've got education policy, which is K through 12 education and higher ed, anything involving energy policy, which is a really hot topic in the United States right now, and environmental policy. But beyond that, we're dealing with election law, we're dealing with data centers, cybersecurity, affordable housing, which people don't even know that we have jurisdiction. So we had I would say the broadest jurisdiction of any committee in the General Assembly. And in the last 2 years, we've had more bills than any other committee in the entire General Assembly. 350 Senate bills, 200 House bills, over 500 bills came to this one committee. So it's much broader than the title would suggest.
Yeah, when we were preparing to have this conversation with you, we had a very hard time trying to narrow down, do we want to talk about energy, which is big, that you pointed out? Do we want to talk about the environment? What do you think the biggest issue is right now?
Right now, I would say it's energy policy. When you look around the United States, and I happen to chair a national task force on energy supply within the National Conference of State Legislators. So every state in the nation is dealing with a few simple things. Number one, demand for energy is skyrocketing. People are electrifying transportation with EVs, whether it's your homes. That's before we even talk about data centers, which are this huge new addition, jacking up demand for energy. And supply for energy, the generation energy is sort of staying pretty stable or even not keeping pace. And so the cost of energy is increasing. You're seeing it on your energy bills, and it's a huge, huge issue for the nation. And then the politics of it are a little tricky. We have a changing political landscape about things like solar and offshore wind. There's more emphasis now on nuclear and natural gas. But every state in the United States, without exception, is dealing with the same set of issues because we don't want to roll in blackouts and brownouts. We don't want our energy bills going through the roof. Right now, Maryland imports 40% of our energy from other states. We don't produce enough energy. And so we're trying to do a lot of things to address that, and that was a big dominant issue this session, and it's going to be a big dominant issue in 2026 and beyond. So I would say right now in the nation, outside of our budget issues, this past session, I think the hottest, biggest issue had to deal with energy policy and how we produce more energy and keep rates down and that type of thing. So,
yeah. Well, I'd have to ask you a question about agriculture because I think agriculture is one of your topics and,
right.
and the work you do. And I just wonder, how do you balance that from coming from Montgomery County and when you think about, which has a great ag zone in northern Montgomery County,
which is in my Senate district.
Right.
Most of the agricultural reserve in Montgomery is in Senate District 15.
Yeah. So when we think about agriculture and Maryland being a state that's vast between aquaculture, horses, cattle, crops, what do you see as one of the big challenges going forward with agriculture?
Well, I'll come back to this first topic of energy policy. So this year we did pass some legislation dealing with siting. Mm-hmm. And where are we going to put, one of the other challenges in Maryland has been we're ranked one of the most challenging, difficult places in the United States to site energy projects. In other words, you need more energy, but where are you going to put it? Nobody wants nuclear power plants in the backyard. Nobody wants transmission lines. Nobody wants a lot of things that you need in order to do that. So this year we did have a bill that, this tension, we had a bill that opened up the possibility of more solar arrays in a lot of our ag communities in the state. And it was a C.T. Wilson bill in the House, and it was a Feldman bill over in the Senate. And so the bill, and it was very opposed originally by the Maryland Association of Counties, so and the farmers and the ag community. And my district, which is the epicenter of the ag community in Montgomery, the 93,000, were up in arms. And so we had to work with the farming community, the ag community, to put in place something that doesn't exist anywhere in the United States of America, protections for priority agricultural parts of our state, which said that in the priority preservation areas of our state, 95% of those lands have to be protected from state preemption authority. You can only build solar arrays in 5%. Right now, under current law, the state can use its state preemption authority to build solar arrays and solar installations in 100% of our ag community. But we put in an amendment specifically to say the state's going to relinquish 95% of its state preemption authority because we really need to make sure that we don't overdo it in the ag community. So there's a tension between protecting our ag reserve and, in this case, the need for more energy. And that plays out in a lot of other issues and there's also a little bit of a tension between local government and state government. The state, comes in with a lot of, ideas that have implications for local zoning and where you can build this or do this. And so all kinds of issues, affordable housing, which comes to the committee. Similarly, the ag reserve is another area where people would love to build up the ag reserve. We need more housing, we need more development. Let's just open up these protected areas and build. And local zoning has come in play over time to kind of protect against overbuilding, overdevelopment. And so there's a lot of areas where I think there's a tension between whether it's more energy, more housing, more development, and the need to protect our ag communities, our farmers. Ag is the number one industry, literally, economically, in the state of Maryland. And so we saw that front and center this past session, and I think that's going to continue to be sort of challenging.
This is the last session before election time, so do you anticipate a quieter session this year? I know last year was one of the tougher sessions I've seen probably in 20 years. I know.
Well, I think election year sessions are a little different than the other three because everybody's looking around their shoulders, who's running against them or not. I think this year, and I know we're filming ahead of the session a bit, but I think one of the things in particular is, the governor's race. I don't know as we sit here today, and I don't want to, I don't know when this will be airing, but it will be interesting to see whether former Governor Hogan were to, for example, jump into a race against Governor Moore. And that's a race that would have national profile. It would spotlight a lot of the things we're doing in Annapolis because it will have implications, I think, for our state in a big way. So I think there's some things that have yet to sort of, materialize that could have huge implications on sort of the tone of the session, and I think that's one big thing. And then these issues that I talked about, the impact of the federal budget decisions on a state like Maryland. We had a budget deficit last session. Well, if all these federal cuts come into play on multiple fronts, it's going to have an impact on our budget. And this energy policy debate and discussion is going to be a hot issue yet again. And so I think it's going to be a busy session. I think it could be politically hot, or maybe not. But I think election year politics tend to be, and sessions tend to be a little different than the prior three.
Well, we've had you for a long time, and we appreciate you coming to Baltimore and having this conversation. Before we leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers?
No, I think it's going to be I actually think it's going to be a really interesting session, no matter who is running for governor. And I think we're going to have our hands full. And I anticipate that my committee will yet again have more bills than any other committee in the General Assembly on a wide array of topics that are hugely important for our state.
Well, we appreciate you joining us.
Okay, it was a great conversation, and thank you for the invite.
And thank you for joining us on Conversations with HJM.